Welcome, folks, to the Standing Committee on the Economy. I'm Colleen Young, and I'll be chairing this afternoon's meeting. Joining us here today, we have members Trent Weatherspoon in for Jennifer Bowes. We have Ken Francis, Delbert Kirsch, Daryl Harrison in for Greg Ottenbright, and Doug Steele. Today, the committee will be considering the 2024-25 estimates and 2023-24 supplementary estimates number 2 for the Ministry of Agriculture and the 2024-25 estimates for the Water Security Agency. We will take an hour recess at about 5:30. We will first consider the estimates and supplementary estimates number 2 for Vote 1 Agriculture, Central Management and Services Subvote AG01. Minister Merritt is here with his officials, and I ask the officials the first time they speak at the mic just to mention their names and their positions, and Hansard will turn your mic on for you. So, Minister, you can introduce your officials that are here with you today and begin with your opening remarks.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm pleased to be here today to discuss the 2024-2025 Ministry of Agriculture estimates. The officials joining me here today are obviously James Cherwick, my Chief of Staff, Rick Burton, Deputy Minister, Lee Otten, Assistant Deputy Minister of Field Operations, Amy Standish, Assistant Deputy Minister, Policy and Programs, Penny McCall, Assistant Deputy Minister, Regulatory and Innovation, Rob Pentland is the Acting Executive Director, Corporate Services Branch, Jeff Morrow is President and CEO of Saskatchewan Crop Insurance, Lorelei Halston is here as Acting VP of Operations, and Christine Veristek is Executive Director of Finance and Accounting. So, this past year, we saw the agriculture industry continue to demonstrate its strength and resilience. Producers harvested a crop of more than 31 million metric tons, an impressive feat given the dry conditions this past growing season. We saw key investments announced for our value-added sector that have helped us meet our value-added growth goals. This includes expansions in the canola crush sector and recent developments like our new sow processing facility in Moose Jaw and pea processing facility in the Yorkton area. And Saskatchewan saw a 4th consecutive year of record agri-food exports, with shipments totaling $20.2 billion for 2023, and this was one of our drier years. This continued success reflects positively on Saskatchewan's agriculture sector, providing evidence of the global demand for high-quality agriculture products our province consistently delivers. Staying competitive, staying sustainable, and staying profitable is fundamental to our agriculture industry here in Saskatchewan. We are focused on supporting the resiliency of the sector, which is a key part of a resilient economy in Saskatchewan. This year's budget helps position the sector for continued success. The 2024-2025 agriculture budget is a record $570.6 million, an increase of more than $22 million from last budget. The ministry's core budget, including salaries and FTEs, remains largely unchanged. Last year, we introduced a new suite of strategic programming for Saskatchewan producers and agribusinesses under the Federal-Provincial Sustainable Canadian Agriculture Partnership. This is a 5-year, $485 million investment by federal and provincial governments in strategic initiatives for Saskatchewan agriculture. As part of this agreement, the budget provides $431.7 million for a fully funded suite of business risk management programs. Over the last 3 years, programs available through SCIC have provided over $6 billion of insurance claims and other program benefits directly to Saskatchewan producers. Those programs have largely responded to weather-related production losses. We continue to work to build and grow all of our business risk management programs to ensure the continued success of Saskatchewan agriculture. The multi-peril crop insurance average coverage for 2024 is $389 per acre. This is largely due to an average decrease in insured commodity prices. The average premium is correspondingly decreasing to $12.71 per acre. While these averages reflect the overall program, it is important to remind producers coverage and premiums are individualized to their operation. Coverage reflects each producer's production records, and premium reflects each producer's claim history. The crop insurance program continues to respond in times of need. Even when we face back-to-back difficult years, a combination of the crop insurance fund, government and private reinsurance is in place to ensure the program remains reliable. New for 2024, there are several enhancements to the crop insurance weather-based programs. The mixed forage rainfall insurance program protects a forage feed crop not previously covered under SCIC's weather-based programs, including mixed forage, green feed, and silage. With the intercrop rainfall insurance program, annual intercrops intended for harvest can now be insured for below average seasonal precipitation. Additionally, coverage is increasing for the 2024 forage rainfall insurance program. As well, an additional 38 weather stations have been added to supplement the existing network. All weather-based programs are enhanced by this increased weather station density province-wide. With 224 weather stations across the province, most land is located within 30 kilometers of at least one weather station. This year's budget allocates $89.4 million through the Sustainable Canadian Agriculture Partnership to continue to deliver our investment in priority areas to help ensure producers remain competitive and profitable. We are in our second year of strategic programs following a successful rollout of the programs last year. There was a big uptake of the programs, and we anticipate seeing a large volume of applications again in 24-25. Popular programs include the Farm and Ranch Water Infrastructure Program to develop sustainable water resources, the Resilient Agriculture Landscape Program, or RELP, to increase resiliency of agriculture land, and the Animal Health and Biosecurity Program. Another big priority area for funding is agriculture research, with an investment of more than $38 million allocated in this year's budget. This funding will support our research partners and the world-class research institutions in this province. Our investment includes continued efforts through the Agriculture Development Fund and the Strategic Research Initiative. Investments in research are one of the smartest investments we can make. It helps us ensure our agriculture sector stays competitive and able to respond to future challenges and opportunities. Saskatchewan is a leader when it comes to value-added agriculture and is home to one of Canada's fastest-growing food manufacturing sectors over the past 10 years. The Saskatchewan Lean Improvements in Manufacturing, or SLIM, program is one of our flagship programs for the value-added sector. Clients can use SLIM if they are a business involved in the value-added processing of crops and livestock into food, feed, or bioproduct. This year's budget provides relief for the livestock sector after several successive years of dry conditions. In 2024, we are freezing the Crown land grazing rate at 2022 levels. The rate freeze applies to all grazing leases in Saskatchewan. This is the second consecutive year that rates have been maintained at existing levels. Additionally, cattle producers who must reduce their stocking rates on leased Crown land due to drought will again be eligible for a rent reduction. This program helps to protect and maintain the sustainability of Crown land for the long term. For producers who lease cultivated land, the ministry will freeze the 2024 average cultivation lease rates on Crown lands at the 2023 levels. Additionally, Saskatchewan Crop Insurance Corporation continues to offer robust crop insurance coverage. We have seen excellent uptake in SCIC's forage program and forage rainfall insurance program. These are programs that will continue to be there for producers as we enter another potentially dry year in parts of Saskatchewan. Our government also recognizes the importance of the livestock price insurance program for producers and the value it provides to Saskatchewan's livestock sector to mitigate market risk. With this budget, we are once again providing support through industry grants. We are pleased to be able to assist organizations and events that help drive the current and future success of our industry. This includes a variety of activities throughout the year, from conferences to shows such as the Canadian Western Agribition, Canada's Farm Show, and the Western Canadian Crop Production Show. These events are important to producers to help our industry continue to grow and advance as we work towards achieving our growth goals for agriculture. As Agriculture Minister, I have firsthand viewed of the great work taking place in this industry, and I hear about the global demand for our products. It is my privilege to introduce this agriculture budget that will continue to support this key economic sector in Saskatchewan. I want to thank you for your time, and I look forward to the questions.
Thank you, Minister. I'll now open the floor to questions from members, and I'll recognize Mr. Weatherspoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members. Thank you, Minister, and certainly thank you to all the officials, senior officials with respect to agriculture here today, and all those that are connected to this very proud, vital, and dynamic sector in the province. We have an incredibly proud, world-class agricultural sector in this province that we're all very proud of. We need to make sure it's has the footing that it needs moving forward, front and center, that producers are well positioned. But we have so much to be proud of in agriculture in this province. Certainly, I think the drought situation that many producers have faced over the last number of years has been a very significant hardship, and is having some pretty serious impacts on a lot of producers. So as we go into spring and into another growing season here, we're all, of course, pulling for the moisture and the rains. Even late snow will take, of course, to ensure that producers are well positioned. We certainly think of those livestock folks, and those on the crop side, all down in the southwest and the west central parts of the province who have been hit in such an extraordinary way. The reality is that we've had 2 out of the last 3 years where we've had to access, or the agri-recovery response was triggered, of course, for very serious drought. And certainly there's some levers government has on these fronts. Some were described here today, but I have a few questions just around these areas. What was the uptake in 2023 around the feed assistance compared to 2021? So kind of the number of participants, the payments, number of head, et cetera.
I'll start just a bit about the program for this year, and then I'll turn it to Jeff because he'll give the numbers kind of in the comparisons and the animal numbers. But just this year alone in the program, it's right around 3,800 producers that were that applied, and what we had paid out, and then we announced the top up yesterday of what we're going to do. So that'll be a projection. But it's probably going to be in the neighborhood of about 85 million, I think, with the total that'll be paid out between the Fed and the provincial government. So I'll turn it to Jeff because he's got the total stats on animals and number of producers.
So yeah, for the, Jeff Morrow, President CEO. Minister covered the number of applicants and projected payments. It represents about 600,000 animals in the breeding animals in the 2023 program. 2021, about 11,000 applicants, 277 million, and 1.4 million breeding animals.
I'm really sorry. Can you just give me those were good numbers, and I wasn't keeping my notes as quick, taking them as quick. Can you just go through the animals and the number of producers for each again?
Yep. So 2023, I'll start with 3,800 producers, 600,000 animals. 2021, around 11,000 producers and 1.4 million animals.
And the total cost for both?
277 million for the 2021 program, and this is a projection because we just announced the top up, but about 85 million. Yep.
Okay. Have program reviews been completed with producer input to assess the effectiveness of the programs at this point? I guess the 2021, and do you have intentions with the 2023?
I'll start just with a bit. And first and foremost, I think when you look at the two programs from 23, or 21 and 23, obviously they're quite a bit different. And, in 21, it was a province-wide drought, and we saw it. It wasn't even province-wide. It was Western Canada and also a lot of the Midwest United States, as far as down as Texas as well. So the feed challenge became obviously a lot more significant and widespread. So, and I think you saw that even this year with the applications. Jeff gave the numbers in 2021, over 11,000 applications. This year, 3,800. But the one thing that really has to be said, and it has to go on record, and I want to put it on record, is what we heard, what I heard from individual producers in my area in 2021 and even this year. But in 2021, what I heard was thank you, obviously, for the program, but the delivery and the timing of the program. And we heard it from producers right across. And I said this publicly before, I think it really is kudos to a group of people. Obviously, the Saskatchewan crop insurance staff have to really be commended for the timeliness in putting this out. Not only were they dealing with a drought in crop side, then we had an agri-recovery program for the livestock side and added that to it as well. So I heard from producers that got their checks in a very timely manner, and we're very appreciative of that as well. Jeff will get more into the weeds on the numbers and things like that, but there's a couple of things that I wanted to say, and another one I want to say, and I've said it publicly too, is in 2021, the committee that designed the program was producers and producer groups here in the province. We took our direction from them on the design of the program that could be delivered, that ended up being virtually adopted by Alberta as a result of that as well. So I just wanted to go on record and say that there's a lot of people to be thanked, and a lot of those people are the senior team behind me that work for crop insurance and the staff there in Melville that delivered a program that really did work for producers here in Saskatchewan. So I'll turn to Jeff with some numbers.
So as far as review, there's a couple of pieces. There is a review because there has been other agri-recovery programs rolled out across the country to deal with various weather challenges. There is a review going on at the federal provincial level about the agri-recovery overall. So there's that review that's occurring. And I'd say from what we heard from our industry, as the minister said, we work with industry on developing these programs. When we were out in the summer last year at the Saskatchewan Cattlemen's Association's town hall meetings in the most impacted areas of the province, what we heard is it needed to be a more targeted response. The drought wasn't as widespread as it was in 2021, thankfully, but those producers still felt obviously the challenges of the dry conditions.
Thanks for that. Without a doubt, producers really needed support in those areas that had faced such protracted drought. And I know I just want to commend the producer groups as well and the livestock organizations for their voice and their advocacy. I was pleased as agriculture critic to join them in an important call early in July of last year, as it was very clear that the situation was dire for many. And I certainly want to commend all the officials and all those with Sask Crop Insurance, all those through Melville that were involved in designing and delivering the program. Without a doubt, it was needed for those that were facing significant hardship. So then, just to be clear, can you describe a bit more what the producer engagement will be for the review of the 2023 program, and maybe just a bit more on what you learned from the 2021 program through producers, and what sort of, who was involved in that, and what input you received?
Rick Burton, Deputy Minister. So that process is fairly early days in the review, so not all of the steps have been laid out yet, but each province will undertake consultations with their own stakeholders, and we'll be discussing with our stakeholders their feedback on agri-recovery throughout the process and feed that into the review that goes on. We expect that there will be a discussion at the Ag Ministers meeting in July where that can be, those views can be further brought forward.
Thank you. Thanks for that. And who will you have involved in that as far as on the producer side?
There. It's something we do ongoing. We virtually do almost monthly calls with all our stakeholders. We have one, usually an hour with the crops, and we have an hour with all the livestock sector. So they'll all be engaged in it, right from the cattle producers, the cattle feeders, the bison, the poultry, the egg. They'll all be the sheep. They'll all be engaged in the process, and all those that were eligible for the funding side will be obviously brought into the full discussion.
So again, we're going into another year that is shorter on moisture than I think most folks would want. I mean, again, let's hope for the rains and the moisture here that everyone's going to need. But if you look at the fact two out of the last 3 years has triggered the agri-recovery response, and good work by those in a quick way, but ad hoc programs that have been put together. I guess the thought is, do you see value in a more proactive approach to managing drought risks within the agricultural sector? Throwing programs together in an emergent way is commendable for all those organized in it, and then doing the postmortem after is important. But I think there's increasing calls from producers that there needs to be a more organized, proactive, planned approach on these fronts. And to the point, would a drought preparedness committee with producer and community representation help better plan and better monitor the situation on the ground to make these programs more responsive and timelier, less ad hoc, if you will, to help producers plan?
I think if you look, and I think if you listen to my opening remarks, especially on the livestock side, there's a lot of things we have done, and you look at the. It's pretty easy to tell when you look at where the payout has come on that side, especially through the drier years that we've had. When you look at the rainfall insurance alone over the last 3 years, well over $150 million paid out to producers in that one as well. And you look at what we've done also with this year, as I said in my opening remarks, with the freezing of the Crown land lease rates. And then also, in the event of dryness, the livestock, the pasture groups can pull the animal units off, and their rent will be obviously reduced as a result of that as well. Obviously, we continue to consult with the industry, as I said in my previous answer as well. We have ongoing discussions with all our livestock groups on a monthly basis. And I mean, obviously, if conditions change, it's no different than what we did in 2021. We actually went down to almost weekly and bi-weekly meetings with those groups as well. So we obviously have an internal working group as well for drought conditions as well. We have a drought steering committee that is made up of the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency, obviously the Ministry of Agriculture, the Water Security Agency, the Ministry of Government Relations is there, the Ministry of Environment is there. Obviously, the crop insurance team is there, and Saskwater is there as well. So we have an internal working group that really does, watch this and look into this as well, and monitoring all these situations. But I'm very proud of our record in consulting with the industry and having virtually an open door policy with our stakeholders. And we've been reaching out, as I said, on a monthly basis. In many cases, in 2021, it was a lot more frequent than that. So we'll continue to monitor the way we are, and we'll continue to have a very good open and discussion with our stakeholders, as we always have. And I think I could quote our stakeholders, and I probably will quote them sometime tonight, in the relationships that they have with this government. And I'll turn it to Jeff, because Jeff does have some numbers on the crop insurance side.
So maybe just on the changes that we made to 2024 for the forage side of our business that the minister covered in the opening remarks. We have a group of stakeholders in the livestock sector that we work with closely on program improvements and ideas for improvements. As I said, we attended those Saskatchewan Cattlemen's Association town hall meetings throughout the summer. We got some feedback there. So a lot of what we changed in 2024 is a direct result of working with those stakeholders, identifying opportunities to make the programs more relevant. So the forage rainfall program is the main livestock program in terms of participation, and a couple of changes on that program. We did increase the coverage available under that program by changing the way we set the forage or the hay price, and also changing and increasing the productive capacity that we use of grazing across the province. So we were able to offer the highest coverage that we have in the program's history in 2024. The 38 weather stations that the minister spoke of, that was feedback that we got that, what happens at the weather station doesn't always match what happens at the ranch or where they're grazing the livestock. So we did close some gaps with the addition of those weather stations to give producers more choice, to pick a weather station that fits where they're grazing or fits a weather pattern better where they might be grazing those livestock. So those are the main things on the forage rainfall. The other piece that we heard from that group as a priority was something for that mixed forage, the cocktail crops, the cover crops, green feed, silage. So we introduced a new weather-based program that covers that. And we did see uptick in our participation. I don't have final numbers, but what it's looking like so far is about a 500,000 acre increase, up from about 3.3 million across all those programs to almost 4 million in 2024. So the other piece that we heard from industry was that we needed to create more awareness about how the programs do work and what they can offer. So we did take a different approach. We were more proactive in reaching out to those ranchers, our livestock producers. So we were happy to see the increase in participation across the board there.
Well, there's no doubt that there's lots of good work that's been undertaken, but it doesn't dismiss, I think, the importance, just to stress on the minister, of the opportunity to work in a more coordinated, proactive fashion, take producers up on their call to work together in an active way here, and have those on the ground right across Saskatchewan that can be there to make sure that we have producers positioned with the best programs possible and in a timely way. And so I would continue to stress that. I think we see that with our neighboring provinces as well, including Alberta, are taking a bit more proactive approach on some of the drought concerns on this front. And certainly stakeholders, producer groups are ready to be engaged in these ways. Some are making those calls directly, publicly, and lots of producers, though, are very clear in the importance of this. Some of the producer groups have been advocating yield cushioning, and I just want to get a sense of where the minister's at on yield cushioning, or where folks are at on it. And they're looking at this to help mitigate the years of drought many producers many farms are experiencing, and as a result, rising premiums and declining coverage. So I guess my question to the minister is, where's he at on yield cushioning? Is he assessing this option? I know right now crop insurance currently applies the cap after 2 consecutive years below 70% production. I believe Alberta, I understand, invests in yield cushioning any years that fall below 70%. So yield cushioning, I understand, would limit yield declines to 70% for calculating long-term averages. So I just want to get a sense. I see different producer groups making these calls and producers using their voice on this front. Just want to see where the minister's at in his assessment of it.
So we have had yield cushioning in place since 2010. And the way our yield cushioning works is you only need 1 year below to trigger. So in the second year, if it happens again, that second year will be cushioned to the 70% level. And that same cushioning applies each consecutive year that your yield drops below 70. So it does effectively do a multi-year cushioning and doesn't allow that yield to drop below 70%. And that's in an effort to keep, for producers that are experiencing multiple years of challenging yields, to keep their coverage at relevant levels. So that's the way our yield cushioning works.
Thanks so much for that information. Is that, are you looking at any changes on this front, or is that that model working well from the input you're receiving from producers?
So I'd say we are satisfied with the level of coverage that this yield cushioning does support. When you look at the participation in the program, last year, 36 million acres. We just got through our sales deadline here 10 days ago, but certainly no trend for any significant shifts. I think producers see the value in the program and in terms of what it can provide when they do have some of these challenging years.
Well, thanks for the response. With respect to agri-stability, of course, there's been some improvements brought over the last number of years. We've advocated along with producer groups on this front. We had the removal of the reference margin limits in 2020 that we had pushed for and that occurred, as well as the increase in the compensation rates in 2023. Which were important measures that we had advocated for, as the minister knows. Yet, enrollment continues to fall with respect to agri-stability, it seems. And I believe if I look at the annual report, it indicates an enrollment decline of about 16%, possibly from 2017 to 2021. So as a margin-based program, should be providing coverage due to high input costs and significant drops in commodity prices last year. So just a question about, there's been improvements brought, yet enrollment has been dropping. Do you have a sense yet of what enrollment's looking like or forecast to be this year?
So for 2023 enrollment, the deadline for producers to enroll in that program for the 24 program year, I should say, is April the 30th. So we're a few weeks away from that. One of the things that we do look at in terms of participation is not just the number of producers enrolled, but the percentage of the farm cash receipts that we cover in the program. So while we do see enrollments coming down, that percentage of farm cash receipts has been in that 51 to 53% for a number of years. So I think we're seeing farm consolidation occurring, but the percent of margin is staying relatively stable. And I think, the RML that you referenced, that has been a significant improvement to the program. And we are still working to see if there are other ways to make it a more effective program. We're engaged at the FPT level, involved in those discussions to see if there are other things that can make that program even more effective.
No, I appreciate that, and good context on the farm cash receipts and the consolidation that's there, and that seems to be sort of holding steady. I think the hope would be that you'd see subscription grow with it. I guess maybe just can you illuminate a little bit more what you're hearing from producers as to some of the concerns as to why they may not be enrolling? And then you talked about the FPT work. I think it's been involved in the communique in the last couple years. Can you talk a little bit about what government's considering on this front to make it a little more predictable and easier to enroll?
Yeah, so one of the, you talked about the increased compensation rate from 70 to 80%, the removal of the reference margin limit. Another thing that has changed is moving the deadline to June 30th, which will result in more timely processing of the claims, getting the information in quicker, and hopefully checks in producers' hands quicker. A couple of things that we're currently looking at, of course, is the list of eligible expenses. So what is eligible and calculated is you calculate your reference margin. And then the evaluation of inventory on non-marketable inventory. So things like your hay, your feedstock that you're going to use, that can have a significant impact on payments, particularly in drought years, and would make the program more responsive to the livestock sector during those. So we're still working through those. Any changes to that program, of course, needs to meet the amending formula, has to have federal agreement and the amending formula with a sufficient number of provinces. So we continue to work through those.
No, thanks for the information, the context, and the work that's going in. I mean, it's important that we have these backstops in place and that they're is viable and utilized to the extent that we need them to be. Well, let's look more specifically at the current state of affairs for crop insurance, and obviously it's been drawn upon these last few years with respect to the drought hardship that producers have faced, and that's what it's there for. And it's it needs to be that backstop they can count on. Could you just give us an update? I know a few years back there was a few $1 billion in surplus, if you will, or dollars that were in place, and we know it's been drawn upon quite heavy. Can you just state, where crop insurance is at, where the surplus is at right now, and then could you also talk about a little bit about forecasts for the year ahead, and that if we were in that terrible situation where producers were facing drought and hardship again this year and drawing on crop insurance, what sort of percentage of coverage is reinsured, and how much would be a direct commitment that would be required from the province?
So for claims, kind of maybe I'll just approach it from the order of where the funds come from. So first is our premium. So for 2024, our budgeted premium there is about 1.08 billion. So we'd use that first. And then our projection for the fund is about 577 million in that fund. So those are the funds that are available to pay claims. If we're exceeding that, then there is the federal provincial reinsurance that comes in, and we also have about $230 million of private reinsurance that we have access to.
Thanks for the information. When you talk about the Fed, province, provincial reinsurance, is that simply the financial? You're the backstop to the program, the Fed and the provincial program. Is there a formal reinsurance program that's associated there? If so, can you describe it, or is it simply the financial obligations that then fall, of course, to the provincial and the federal government? And then you mentioned the private reinsurance for the smaller portion there, the 231 million. I know it's fairly expensive as well to carry reinsurance, so I suspect you're assessing how much you should carry at the associated cost. But maybe just describe a little bit more what the Fed and provincial reinsurance is that you described there, and then a bit of commentary on the assessments that you make around how much private reinsurance to carry.
So the federal provincial reinsurance fund, the way that works, the first component of that, there is a deductible that is the responsibility of the provincial reinsurance fund. That's equal to 2.5% of our liability. If claims exceed that level, then there is the federal provincial reinsurance agreement suggests that 75 cents for every dollar of loss above that comes from the federal reinsurance fund, 25 cents comes from the provincial reinsurance fund. So that is the reinsurance agreement, and that is the backstop for the program. If those funds should get into a deficit position, then future premiums pay those funds back. When it comes to the private reinsurance, we do use a broker, and we do look at a number of different structures each year, trying to find the right value for money. So for this year, for example, we did look at attaching reinsurance lower, but the cost goes up. The more likelihood you have of a claim, the premium for that type of cover does increase.
Okay. And what kind of rate are you talking for the private reinsurance?
So the private reinsurance that we purchased in 2024, it attaches at 16% of liability. And so for that coverage and that limit that we bought, it's $40 million in premium for $230 million in coverage. And the lower down you go on the percent of liability, the probability of claim goes up, and therefore your premium.
Not cheap, but important to have all the provisions and planning in place in case of a catastrophic situation. So, could you describe? I guess could you forecast what let's say that we had a crop year that a drought that was somewhere between the fiscal impacts on crop insurance in 2023 and what the impacts were in 2021. So somewhere kind of in the middle, if you will, between those two events. What would that payout or what would that fiscal impact be on crop insurance?
That's strictly a hypothetical question, isn't it? I mean, how would we know until we even know where we're at? So,
yeah, I guess.
I mean,
I guess
what's it got
forecast
to do with the budget? I guess is my question to you.
Sorry, and maybe you misunderstood the question.
Yeah.
100% of the budget, right? Because it's big dollars, and it's about the backstop producers need, and it's about what the impacts are on the program. So maybe you misunderstood the program. Looking at if we were into a significant drought situation again this year.
Madam Chair, we're not in that situation yet, so I'm wondering, I mean, we could hypothetical all night here if you want me to. We will. We'll hypothetical all night.
Up, sir.
I'm not at all. I'm not at all.
This is about planning, but having a good fiscal foundation is critical to business risk management programs, and that's what a budget is all about, sir. So don't get worked up.
Not at all.
Mr.
Not at all.
Weatherspoon, they'd given you a base for 2021, I believe, and what you are asking is probably what has already been proposed in the budget under that.
But like, it's
Yeah.
totally hypothetical, Madam Chair.
So the budget has proposed what would be covered under those
That's right.
premiums.
So then what is the situation as we know what the premiums are that we're collecting, we know what the surplus is. I mean, you don't forecast, what you think the drought is going to be specifically, but can you give a scenario of a drought situation and what the fiscal impact would be? I mean, it's a basic piece of what you do with assumptions of any part of a budget, whether that's your resource assumptions, and certainly for an actuarial program like a big business risk management program like crop insurance.
No, but it's too much blue sky.
Yeah, it is, because the 260 million is in the stores, what previous programs were, so.
But things change in 2 weeks. Like, look at the snowpack change. So, in principle, it's not.
Like if I go to finance, I think finance, I can say, hey, what if the oil price adjusts by this? They say, well,
Yeah, but that's not
no.
weather. That's
Yeah.
not weather
Yeah.
related.
Well, it's those
This is all
things that
weather
are-
related. 100% weather related.
Well, I won't press it down when I'm worked up.
So, but it's about, your premiums were already set in here, so the budget is already set on.
No, I understand.
You can top the numbers out as good as anybody else. It's blue sky, 100%. And you don't know where the rain's gonna happen, snow,
Yeah.
frost.
No, I understand.
Hail.
But that's, yeah.
Yeah. In principle. In principle, it's a benign question, but it's not a tangible answer from that side of the table, is it?
Yeah, if you run a big insurance program, you'd have to say.
Well, you can top out 100% loss across the whole program.
For sure, I'll vote for that. But, yeah, that's okay. No, we don't, there's lots of other.
So the way we approach the budget for indemnity forecast, we look at the last 10 years of our losses. So as a percentage of our liability in each year. So for 2024, we're looking 2022 and back. A 10-year average loss is just under 8%. Our projected liability for 2024 is right at around $12.8 billion. So we are projecting an indemnity forecast just over $1 billion.
No, thanks for that information, and from that, I guess you can play out or factor out or calculate different scenarios. But I appreciate your response there. No need to get worked up on these things, Minister. It's just a matter of making sure we have the programs in place for folks and the budget foundation that supports it. Moving along a bit to the livestock price insurance program. Obviously, this is a valued program and been a good program, and those that have been involved in its design deserve credit. It's a file the minister knows I've been fairly dogged in following up with him on and pushing that it's time that we drive up subscription in that program and ensure equity for the livestock sector here with making sure that there's federal, provincial contributions to it. So we're making it a national program, but having those contributions there, which address the inequity that the livestock producers are facing with it. It's a good program. We get lots of good feedback on it, but then drive up subscription and ensure a stronger backstop there. Can the minister give us an update as to where that is at? I know there's been some words at this committee in the past that there's some undertakings to advocate on this front with other provinces and nationally. Can you give us an update as to the efforts that you've undertaken as minister on this front, and if there's some hope or any timelines on this front? It's certainly an important improvement that producers would value.
Well, we've always been a strong advocate for this program as a national program. Ever since I've had the privilege of serving as the Ag Minister of this province, we've always taken this lead on this, along with our counterparts from Alberta and Manitoba as well. The federal government still sees it as a regional program, and as such won't fund it as a national program. It is our understanding, and as of the last FPT meeting, that the Maritimes are hopefully coming into the program. We haven't heard officially if it's this year or not yet, but hopefully it will be. And then it'd be the issues around Quebec and Ontario on whether they would be in the program or not. So that's where it stands. And obviously, if it became a national program, which we hope it does, this government will obviously have a very strong position to obviously support the livestock sector here in that program with our share.
Yep, thank you. I think it's a matter of fairness for the sector, and it's important to have those backstops in place. So we'll continue to push and advocate on this front. as well. Shifting gears just a little bit to the Bunge and Viterra merger. Of course, Viterra is Saskatchewan's largest grain handler, and I guess my question to the minister would be: does the province have concerns regarding competition in the grain handling system? And maybe I'll ask that one first and see if there's a follow-up.
Mr. Weatherspoon, can you tie it to the vote that's before us?
Oh, sure.
Because if not, it's not part
Sure.
of the
So,
discussion.
the question would
It might be on a bigger with South Builds or someone else.
Yeah, no, agreed. So, of course, there's impacts on the grain handling system is critically important to producers and to agriculture in Saskatchewan. Viterra's largest grain handler, and agriculture and its the ministry and the resources there are critical for it to evaluate, say, an economic impact assessment. That was done, of course, by the provincial government in 2012 and federally with Glencore and Viterra, and also then not on the ag side, but directly BHP and then PCS. So I'm just, this time there wasn't an economic impact assessment. There's concerns over impacts on the grain handling system and farm incomes. So I guess the question would be, why hasn't the ministry undertaken an economic impact assessment on this front? Part of the ag, like impact on the producers, just like disease, bovine disease or anything. No, nobody's, that's the role of the ag industry.
We'll bring someone that has been engaged in this, our new ADM, Amy.
Thank you. So I'm Amy Standish. I'm the Assistant Deputy Minister of Policy and Programs. On this one, right now, there is work underway at the federal level. So this is an item that is going before the Competition Bureau and Transport Canada. Both of those organizations are undertaking a review that is going to go in front of the Federal Minister of Transport, and then there will be things released after that. The Competition Bureau report, this is going to be a publicly released report later in April. And then the Transport Canada one will not be publicly released, but that is expected to go to the Federal Minister of Transport in June. Some of the reasons around the economic analysis, it is best suited to these groups as they're going to have access and be able to call on some of the documents from the companies kind of going through. We wouldn't have access to all of the inner workings of those companies and the kind of the business details to really understand. Of course, we have heard from our industry, right? They've identified both opportunities and potential concerns, and so we've been listening to them and encouraging them to also reach out to Transport Canada and the Competition Bureau to better inform those reviews as they undertake that analysis.
Thanks so much for the information. Is there not an opportunity for the province? I mean, we sort of have the most at stake here, and there's good folks that'll be involved in those organizations federally, but we know the impacts best here in the province and have the organizations, the producers who understand supply chains and potential of behaviors, anti-competitive behaviors of a monopoly, or where there could be pinch points that could be concerns for them that impact farm incomes. Is there an opportunity for the province to work more directly with the Competition Bureau or some of the assessments that they're undertaking?
Thank you. So ministry staff have had internal conversations with Transport Canada and the Competition Bureau to kind of walk through what that process looks like and identify some of those key questions that we have. In that, we've also been doing consultations over time with our industry to take a look at what opportunities are there and potentially what issues or concerns to better inform our work. From there, we did make a submission into Transport Canada and Competition Bureau, and that was to highlight a lot of the key questions that we were hearing, talk about the opportunities and, again, the concerns and questions that our industry had flagged for us. Because they have all of that analysis from the companies and the data there, they are best positioned to kind of take a look based on the questions that we have and the economic analysis that they would be able to do. So we've asked them to further look into the issues that we've identified in conversations with industry.
No, thanks so much for the information, and I think it's critically important that the Saskatchewan perspective is well understood here. We're talking about a Saskatchewan giant of sorts with big impacts and big consolidation here, and so there may be certain opportunities that could be pursued, and then you have to assess as well whether there should be recommendations around divestiture of certain assets or interests or other interventions to make sure that the merger isn't impacting farm incomes in a negative way. Yeah, I guess I'd urge Saskatchewan to be really present in this, and I'm thankful for the response that the ADM offered here. I'd urge the minister to, be fully engaged in all that as well. Would you see? I guess you'll see as the assessments being put forward, and so maybe I'm getting into a hypothetical, but be prepared if need be to intervene and speak up for producers if there are needed interventions would be my call. Moving along a little bit, of course, producers have been paying the price on the carbon tax for a long time here, and they're in a tough position, obviously, right? Because they're price takers, and those impacts are ones that they really they can't really absorb, and there's not many other options. Producers are wonderful environmental stewards of the land in so many scenarios and on so many fronts. Some of the technology that some might think would be there just simply isn't in place for producers when you look at grain drying and other aspects. So again, producers are in a hard spot with respect to the carbon tax. Yet if you look at like the livestock sector, they play such an important role as stewards of the grass and of wetlands and native prairie and sequestering carbon. And this is a message I've brought to the minister over the last number of years to this committee. Of course, we are opposed to the carbon tax. We hear from the minister he's opposed to the carbon tax. The problem is producers are still stuck with it. And so there's been the conversation that we've tried to advance and push over the years around some sort of offset or compensation for producers for their role as environmental stewards. We haven't seen that work come to fruition provincially, and I just want to get an update as to what undertakings have been taken on this front and what work is currently underway.
Mr. Weatherspoon, this once again has nothing to do with the agriculture vote that is before you this evening, and it's not, again, doesn't belong in this portfolio and what is here. So if I could redirect you back to a question that relates to any of the programs and any of the budget that is before you in estimates.
Anyways, I don't want to comment on the carbon tax is a big hit for producers, and I think that this ministry is well positioned to understand the intricacy and the impacts for producers and to be the lead, if you will, on these sorts of offsets. But I can't go down this path. I've pursued it every year with the minister. We've had an exchange here in the past.
Minister, if you want a general comment on where we stand, that's fine, but otherwise I realize it has nothing to do with the vote that's before us in the estimates this evening.
I'm disappointed and surprised there's no comment from the minister. I mean, the role of the minister is to stand in the interests of producers, whether it's disease management or business risk management or the impacts of the unfair carbon tax.
Mr. Weatherspoon, could I ask you to move on?
Sure will.
I think you understand where the government stands with regards to the carbon tax. We're against the carbon tax in So let's move forward.
With respect to concerns around the Farmland Security Act and it not being respected or enforced, and the purchases of farmland that are either skirting the spirit and intent of the law or that are illegal by way of foreign land acquisition. This is an issue I've brought forward here before. It's a concern certainly for producers. We do see a lot of consolidation going on, and I think folks want to make sure that when you have a law in place that it's being enforced and that it's enforceable. Where's the minister at on requiring a statutory declaration of beneficial interests, as we've called for in the past, to allow better enforcement, and then as well other tools to crack down on illegal foreign land acquisition.
Maybe a waste of time, but it's still a softball.
This last one? I don't think so.
No, no, the one before.
Oh, the one before. I told you the chair should clean my clock.
Eight kids.
Yeah, no, she was don't mess, right?
Tight shift there. My seatmate is so old. Oh, yeah. Perfecto. Go there for ball, or used to go there for girls softball.
I'll open, I guess, on some of it as well. The member used the word illegal, and I guess it kind of caught me. If he knows of something illegal, I would sure appreciate that he would let the Farmland Security Board know, because I haven't heard of one. I've got speaking points here. The Farmland Security Board has a number of legal tools at its disposal to aid enforcement of the farm ownership provisions in the Saskatchewan Farm Security Act. Statutory declarations are used by land buyers to attest to their resident status and declare their source of funds for farmland purchases. When necessary, the Farmland Security Board has issued orders to reduce and asked the courts to order the judicial sale of lands held in contravention of the Saskatchewan Farm Security Act. I'm going to turn it to Amy here now as a follow-up with some other documents. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'll just start out by saying that in the 2023 calendar year, about 740 statutory declarations were submitted voluntarily to the board, as well as those that were specifically requested by board staff. So if there's questions or concerns, yes, there is the group that is submitted voluntarily, but with any questions, concerns, complaints that are kind of coming in, we can request a statutory declaration as well, or the board can. I should say the board should, not us. If we believe there is a contravention of the Act or any issues there, there is the opportunity for that individual to present their case in front of the board. So they have that opportunity to first come in. And if the board deems that they are indeed in contravention, there is a number of legal tools, as the minister has mentioned, so that they can, one being that they can order to reduce or divest, they can issue administrative penalties, and those are set out in the Act as well, so with more detail.
What do you do in the situation, or if you've identified that acquisition that's not in keeping with the Farmland Security Board occurred a number of years ago, and you've identified that that's happened? How do you deal with the owner at that point, and can you describe divestment process and other information there?
So in this case, if you find something that is maybe not as current from a few years past, it would still follow the same process, and the board would still have those same legal tools available to them to pursue.
And what's the consequence? Is at some point, I guess you deal with divestment. That if it's been obtained not in keeping with the law, divestment is what happens. Is that correct?
Yes, that would be the case, that it would still be that same order to divest.
And as far as the voluntary declaration, that's residency, and then it's all and then it's the capital as well. It's not per se the beneficial interests, and it's not mandatory. I guess, but the question I know, so from some of the legal community over the years that's familiar with the concerns of skirting this law, and that's why I've been bringing it forward, is that it'd be a mandatory statutory declaration with beneficial interest stated.
We feel this is probably an issue that it's really an agreement that should be between Ministry of Justice and ISC. I think your question is probably best directed to them.
No, thanks. Thanks for that. With respect to the irrigation project itself, how I don't want to get the chair. I'm looking over at the chair here. I mean, there's a lot of important questions and big intersection, obviously, with agriculture and producers. What can you share on the agricultural side as far as what's being built out right now, as far as projected impacts or on-farm costs, economic analysis, those sorts of pieces, and just what can you provide? I mean, the province is going down this path. Interested in what involvement the Ministry of Agriculture has in it, what you can provide as far as answers around economic assessments, feasibility, and then break down on the different costs that producers would incur either directly or through district works and whatnot.
I'm going to start, and then I'm going to turn it over to Deputy Minister Rick to get into more of the details on some of the programming. Obviously, we've seen a big uptake in irrigation in the province last year alone. Over 24,000 acres went under pivot. I believe the number of the last 3 years is well over 50,000 acres, and we'll see a significant number this year too. As far as the project, I'm not going to talk about the project here. That's a water security agency project. So, but we do have irrigation allocation in our budget, and we've got a pretty good detail there on that. On-farm costs, you asked that question for the farmer for pivot is running in that $2,100 to $2,500 an acre range for them, for depending on probably what type of system they put in and that type of thing. But Rick will get into the details of what we do with our irrigation dollars under the Ministry of Agriculture.
So thank you for that. The ministry provides a number of different services for the irrigators, including investments in research and extension and demonstration projects. We also provide engineering support for people undertaking new irrigation development. Of course, we have our Sustainable Canadian Agriculture Partnership Programming, where we provide support for new irrigation development. That's available for both irrigation development in districts or individuals undertaking programs. So under that program, we'll provide up to 2/3 of the cost of the off-farm irrigation development costs, so up to a maximum of $1,675 per acre. Or, as I said, 67% of the total cost of the development for off-farm, whether that's in a district or outside of a district. There's a maximum per individual of $500,000 per farm under that program as well. So those are the main areas where we're involved. We know that, as the minister said, some of your questions are better directed to water security estimates when you get into economic assessments. But we do know that when producers add irrigation, they're adding up to about $850 worth of additional revenue on that land, which has a significant economic impact on top of the investments they're making in the development.
Well, I think the water security minister is going to be up in a little bit. Is that correct? So, and our able critic will be here. So I'll respect the time. There's important connect, obviously, to agriculture, and I know our critic will pursue that line of questioning. With, I guess, like a water-related question, not related to the irrigation project per se, but has the ministry done analysis that the agricultural water stewardship program does not harm the beef sector by allowing needed water to be drained, or ensuring that any water that is drained isn't bringing contaminants into the livestock watering systems? Just wondering if you've been involved in the development of that policy, and if you've been able to intervene or have assurances that the water supply for livestock has been considered.
Obviously, the water stewardship program is being led by the Water Security Agency, and the consultation process and the development of that. Obviously, we've always been in discussions with the intricacies of the ministries and the importance of that as well. But probably one of the biggest programs we have that's really secured water for the livestock sector is the Farm and Ranch Water Infrastructure Program. That has been a fundamentally sound program that was designed to really look at long-term sustainable water for the livestock sector in the province. And I think if my number is right, it's well in excess of $120 million has been invested in the Farm and Ranch Water Infrastructure Program, highly utilized not only by farmers and ranchers, but also by communities where they partnered and did community wells that really had a great impact on the agriculture sector as a whole in some parts of the province.
Thanks, and I suspect the two ministers talk once in a while.
But you're
With respect to, I mean, there's been some calls. I know the Saskatchewan stock growers have passed a resolution seeking to allow private investment to complement the funding provided through the Resilient Agricultural Landscapes Program, RALP, resolution from 2023 to allow ENGO groups to top up RALP and CCAP projects. These ENGO investments would further support the livestock sector and market. Why did the ministry decide not to allow top-ups, and will the minister consider allowing ENGO investment on top of RALP and CCAP projects to aid the livestock sector?
I think there's a couple different things that you're referring to in your question. I'm going to talk about the RELP program, or the Resilient Agricultural Landscape Program, that's administered by the ministry and under our Sustainable Canadian Agricultural Partnership Program. Under that program, we've decided not to allow environmental groups to stack on top of our programming. We wanted to ensure that both the government dollars and the environment dollars could impact the maximum number of acres, as opposed to stacking them, which would mean that there's less acres being impacted at the end of the day. So under our program in the very first year, where we are supporting the conversion of marginal land to permanent cover, we've seen 37,000 acres of uptake in that first year, a very significant amount, and we expect that to be an important program going forward for the sector. We have not heard complaints from the sector about not allowing the stacking. At times, some of the environmental groups want the stacking, but we have decided to keep our program separate. They can impact additional acres with their money if they so choose.
With respect to the government's goal of maintaining 8.06 million acres of perennial forage, I think if I look at the 2023 report, that area of perennial cover has fallen to 7.81 million hectares. And I guess I'd like some comments on, actions, or if this is a priority, or just some actions that are being undertaken to address this. That's right. Yeah.
Bushels and tons,
Yeah.
hectares and acres,
Yeah.
liters and gallons.
How many acres in a hectare, Doug? Yeah, close enough.
Doug knows his stuff.
It's a softball for him.
I always appreciate all the questions he writes for me for this.
Are you getting answers? You get cut off all the time.
Get cut off. It's your questions that are going to cut off.
Fired across.
Doug Lingenfeld.
Marge, knock her off. Bill Francis.
Yeah.
That's my cousin. That's my middle name.
Lots of legacy in there. Just don't give
Some of them
some
good.
people don't want to remember.
I have to ask, where did you get your numbers from? Because we cannot find them anywhere.
So I have a 2023 report that was, I believe, a ministry report. Yeah, I'm not sure. I believe it's Ministry of Agriculture report. Yeah, I'd have to go back. I pulled it out of there and I have it in my notes here. I apologize. And if you, I guess if you track it, maybe comment on what trend you're experiencing. When the teacher tells you to show your homework and you don't know.
I don't know, the new math, I'm not sure I'd be able to show my work.
eatery.
eatery there with Rusty recently?
I haven't eaten there, but I stopped and see Rusty.
Yeah.
He's opening another one at, Swift.
Oh, good.
A couple buddies bought part of a bar and they
Yeah.
renovated it, put new cafes.
Oh, that's great.
So he's gonna open up Papa's.
That's
Maybe a
great.
little more traffic, but not close to the other one.
Yeah.
Having a hard time sourcing the exact numbers you said, but they may have been some of the ones that are published in the Prairie Resilience report. The tracking of the current numbers are that there isn't very little change this next year in the report that'll come out next time. I think your question was really more around what actions is the ministry doing to help protect native prairie. And so I've talked a little bit about our resilient agriculture landscape programming and how that's helping to convert marginal land back into permanent cover. There's also a number of other tools that we use, conservation easements on any sale of crown land that has a perennial forage in it. We also have, all of our lease agreements do not allow for break or drain when there's native prairie involved. We are moving land into WAPA at a time if there's critical habitat involved that we think it needs to be protected under WAPA. The ministry also is undertaking range health assessments on large blocks of pasture, and that's a continuing effort. We'll continue to do that. But we have done that on over 1 million acres in the last number of years. That really helps the patron groups that are working on that land to get the most out of that pasture and understand the value of that pasture by better management techniques. We also fund research and extension in this area, both at the U of S and then, of course, at some of our agri-arm sites in terms of providing, talking about the benefits of forage and forage blends, and also how that can support a viable livestock industry going forward.
No, thank you. Thank you for that. Cognizant of time, maybe a final question. Obviously, I've expressed our concern that the minister and your government hasn't taken on the challenge of addressing the anti-competitive behaviors in the meat pricing industry and the meat packers, out of province meat packers specifically. I guess I would look and just make that call again and look to you to see if there's going to be some undertakings on this front to address the anti-competitive behaviors, to ensure fairness for producers and ultimately consumers as well. And then subsequent to that, being able to act on the really significant meat processing opportunities that exist in Saskatchewan that present economic opportunity, value for producers and consumers. Of course, the two go hand in hand. You have to address the anti-competitive behaviors of the meat packers to enable the other.
Madam Chair, I'll answer it this way. Due to confidentiality and agreements that I have entertained in, I cannot comment on any further on this.
Thank you. Having reached our agreed-upon time for consideration of these estimates, we will now adjourn consideration of the estimates and supplementary estimates number 2 for the Ministry of Agriculture. I recognize the Minister for any closing remarks he may have this afternoon.
No, thanks, Madam Chair, and thank the member for the questions as well. And obviously, I want to thank the entire team in the Ministry of Agriculture for the work that they do, and obviously in preparation of programs that really do deliver to our stakeholders. Being a farmer all my life and seeing the programs that are here and talking to a lot of my constituents who are ranchers and farmers, the programs that we are delivering are reaching them in the right way. But those can only be reached by having a good team behind you to deliver the programs. So I just want to thank the entire team, both at Crop Insurance and the Ministry of Agriculture, for the work they do to deliver not only dollars at times of need, and they've done that, but also the programs that are working. And we're continuing to see an uptake in the programs and the participation by the industry in our programs that we offer. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Mr. Weatherspoon, if you have any closing comments you'd like to make?
Thanks so much, Madam Chair. Thank you, members. Thanks to the Minister. Thanks so much to the officials that have joined us here tonight. I couldn't agree more that we have exceptional leaders in agriculture who are sitting here today and then right across this province who are connected to this work, certainly at the Ministry of Ag and at Sask Crop Insurance, and then also in the producer organizations and crop organizations and livestock organizations and in the producers, in that whole ecosystem right across this province. So we have a world-class sector and something to be very proud of, and real happy to ask questions and hopefully advocate for the best interests of this very important sector to Saskatchewan. Thanks for the time here tonight, and thanks to all those officials and all those that are that work day in, day out in the interests of this sector and producers.
Thank you, Mr. Weatherspoon. This committee will now stand recessed until 6:30 p.m.